Tesla is a company that's just built on pure massive ambition, right? It's all about world-changing hype and just relentlessly disrupting everything. But what if I told you that every single year, Tesla is legally forced to publish a document that spells out in detail exactly how it could all come crashing down? Okay, let's get into it. So what is it? What's the one thing that really keeps them up at night? Is it a new competitor? Some kind of catastrophic tech failure? A market crash? What does Tesla actually fear the most? Well, the answer isn't something you'll find in some analyst report or in the latest media gossip. We're going to ignore all of that. Because we're going straight to the source, the company's 2024 annual report, what's called the 10-K. And buried deep inside this thing is a section called Risk Factors. And it's basically a confession document. It's where Tesla has to legally list its own potential disasters. This is the company's own private list of what scares them. First up is the risk that really everything else is built on, the incredible challenge of actually building these cars, and building them at a massive scale. I mean, just look at how blunt that is. This is the official lawyer-approved version of what's famously been called production hell. And this isn't just about a few delays here and there. This is a straight-up admission that mastering high-volume manufacturing for something as ridiculously complex as the Cybertruck is an existential threat. Because when delays happen, they don't just annoy customers, they can absolutely cripple your cash flow and sink the entire financial model of the company, which is all built on that promise of massive, massive production. Okay, let's move on to the next risk. And this is the one. This is the one everybody talks about, but you almost never see it laid out in black and white from the company itself. This is, of course, the Elon Musk factor. The very fact that this is listed so high up in their legal warnings, well, that tells you everything about how central and maybe how volatile this dependency really is. And the risk here is so much deeper than just, who would be the next CEO. As the company itself points out, his time being split between SpaceX and X is a direct threat. But even crazier, they admit that the perception of his involvement is directly tied to their brand and their stock price. In other words, a single controversial tweet can have a very real, very measurable financial impact on the company. All right, next up is a risk that kind of pulls back the curtain on a hidden vulnerability in Tesla's financial success story. Its reliance on what governments are doing. You see, for years, a huge part of Tesla's business model wasn't just selling cars. It was selling the idea of electric cars to governments around the world. Just take a look at this chart. That slice of the pie represents regulatory credits. It's basically free money that Tesla gets by selling its extra emission credits to other car companies that aren't meeting their goals. For years, this was pure profit that made their balance sheets look a whole lot better. And yeah, that slice is getting smaller, but the bigger risk is still there. So what happens when those consumer tax credits dry up, or when environmental rules get rolled back? Tesla is admitting that shifting global politics could directly slam their sales and their profits, and that's a factor that is almost completely out of their hands. All right, let's get to risk number 4, which is really all about the big fights looming on the horizon for Tesla. There's one in the courtroom and another one out in the marketplace. So first up, you have the legal threat from their full self-driving technology, and that's followed by the market threat from some rapidly growing competition. This is probably one of the most unique risks that Tesla faces. I mean, think about it. Their most ambitious and potentially most valuable product is also a massive financial and legal landmine. And here's what's so critical to understand. Every single accident involving FSD is a direct threat. Regulators could just step in and force them to make expensive changes or even shut the whole thing down. And unlike a normal recall for a faulty part, a catastrophic software failure could be exponentially more damaging. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most sobering risk of them all. For years, Tesla pretty much had the EV playground all to itself. Well, the company is now flatly admitting that era is over. Just look at this number. That is the recent sales volume from a single competitor, the Chinese EV maker BYD, which has now officially sold more EVs than Tesla. The threat isn't some theory anymore. It is right here, in the numbers. This right here perfectly captures the strategic dilemma they're in. Tesla has always focused on high profit margins, but their competitors, They are laser-focused on high volume and low prices. As Tesla themselves admit, if they can't get their own costs down and fast, they risk being priced out of the very market they helped create. So, after digging through Tesla's own legally required warnings, what's the big takeaway here? What's the final verdict? Well, this risk factors section isn't some prophecy that Tesla is going to fail. Not at all. It's more like a fascinating, legally required dose of reality. It's an official acknowledgement of all the huge vulnerabilities that are sitting just beneath the surface of all that hype. So, from the bottlenecks in production and their deep reliance on one man, to the fading subsidies and those twin threats of liability and competition, these are the hurdles the company itself says it has to clear. Which really just leaves us with one final question. When you put it all together, is Tesla's biggest challenge actually building the future, or is it escaping the immense weight of the story it has told the world?